All right, y'all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're tuning in. I'm grateful to have you here. And we got the great Larry Elder back in the building talking about systemic racism. This clip's actually from 2017, sitting down with Dave Rubin from the Rubin Report. And according to Dave, this is the moment that had the highest impact on changing his mind as far as politics go. So I'm interested to see it. Should be a doozy. Let's get it popping.
So, but you wouldn't not acknowledge that there are some systemic issues.
Give me an example. Tell me what you think the most systemic racist issue is. What is it?
Well, I would say that because black people in most cases, in many cases, were descendants of slaves, that racism as an institution, that it just, a certain amount of it just exists.
2015? Give me the most blatant racist example you can come up with right now.
I think you could probably find evidence that, in general, cops are more willing to shoot if the perpetrator is black.
What's your data
than white?
What's your basis for saying that? Last year,
well, look, I know a lot of people would say, "Look what's going on in Chicago."
I know what they would say.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what the facts are. 965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS. It's complete and total BS. And the reason for these so-called activists saying this is the assumption that racism remains a major problem in America. The media, CNN, especially MSNBC, runs down whenever a black cop shoots somebody, and it's some march on Washington. It's ridiculous. Black people, half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year there were 14,000 homicides. I'm not talking about suicides. I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black. 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
So there's where you would say that this is purely because of social justice. This is purely because they want ultimately for people to be angry enough to just keep voting Democrat.
That's right. And where's the evidence of a lack of social justice? When a black suspect is killed by a cop, believe me, the media is on it. People are watching it, and justice will, for the most part, occur. In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed. Freddie Gray died in a van. I shouldn't say was killed. Died in a van. Yeah. You have a city that's 45% black. City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The number 2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff is black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
So it's funny, I find myself caught in between this a little bit as a liberal where I want to always try to defend the other. So in this case, the other being black people, I'm always sympathetic to that. And that, at the same time, I hear you laying out a pretty solid case.
Well, these are just the facts. I'll tell you something else, too. There was just a study, University of Washington. And it turns out cops were more reluctant, more hesitant to pull the trigger against a black suspect than a white suspect, probably because of the fear of being accused of racially profiling and the fear that the civil rights establishment was going to come down on him. So if anything, whites are more likely to be shot by a cop under certain circumstances than a black person. And in the last 30 or 40 years, the percentage of suspects killed by cops who are black has declined 75%. However, the percentage of whites killed by cops has flatlined.
Yeah.
And so if anything, people are more concerned about shooting black people for fear that they're going to be called racist. And almost every one of these incidents, whether it's Eric Gardner in New York, who died because he was selling Lucy's and resisted arrest, whether it's Tamir Rice in Cleveland, who was twirling around the gun, whether it's Michael Brown in Ferguson, who had just committed a strong-arm robbery, almost every one of these incidents involved somebody resisting arrest. Why don't you just do what the police tell you? My dad said when I get pulled over, have my hand at 10 o'clock, have my hand at 2 o'clock, say yes, sir, say no, sir, make sure my paperwork is in order, and if I feel the cop is mistreating me, get a badge number and deal with it later on. If Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Obama and the whole group of them told black people to do that, we'd have a lot fewer of these things to deal with in the first place.
Yeah.
Just follow the rules. How simple is that? How much common sense do you have to just follow the rules? Deal with it later. You'd still have your life. Are there situations where black cops, white cops do bad things? Absolutely. There's corruption and there's bad things that happen in every field of society, but it's minuscule, it's minute. It should be isolated and not pushed as a giant, overwhelming narrative that cops are out to kill black people, that black people are victims. Stop pushing that. Just do right. Don't put yourself in that situation. Have personal accountability and responsibility when you are placed with that situation under arrest, or just, it could be just a regular routine traffic stop. You turn it into something else. You flip the script. You got to run from the police. You're reaching your center console. Like, a cop has a life too. It don't matter what color they are. They're out to do their job. And nowadays they can't even do their job without fear of being called racist, without fear of being put in harm's way, and their family in harm's way, being put on the media, losing their job. It's ridiculous, man. A cop is there to serve and protect the people. Don't try to demonize them just because a few bad cops, a few bad seeds have slipped through. There's been bad presidents, there's been bad teachers, there's been bad everything, but you don't see that narrative being pushed. There's bad postmen, there's bad rappers and celebrities, and there's evil in every situation in life, but it's minuscule. You got to isolate it. You can't paint the picture as it's a grand, overwhelming problem. It's ridiculous, man. And I'm liking that Dave's sitting there listening. He seems like he's being fair. I don't know if his mind's going to get changed, but I do know, because this is actually 2015. I said 2017. 7 almost 8 years later, Dave Rubin is a hardcore conservative. Other than the fact that he's a gay man married to another man, I mean, he seems to be on the straight and narrow and on the right path, other than his sexual preference. But
all right, so I'm with you. I'm hearing a lot of what you're saying here. So as a black conservative, then, who now you've laid out your case there.
But you haven't laid out yours. I asked you to name the most important example of racism, and you gave white cops going after black people. And I told you, gave you the facts for that. So that's nonsense. So you must have something else. What else is it? If you think racism remains a problem in America, give it to me.
Well, I think it remains a problem.
Give it to me.
It may not be systemic in that it's not like you're not being hired because you're black. There's no systemic reason, legal reason that exists, that kind of thing. But I think that racism as a general theory exists.
I need some specifics. You gave me the white cop thing. What else? Give me another example where you think is a problem.
you can't just cry wolf without some evidence. Where's it at?
As a black conservative, tell me, how do you get people to come around?
You're the one who made the assertion that you think racism remains a major problem in America. I asked you to give me an example.
Stance.
You gave me white cops going after blacks. As far as I'm concerned, you didn't hold it up very well. What's the other argument you have? What's the other thing?
Well, I don't know that it's systemic in the sort of macro sense.
I'm not mad. I just want to know what it is you're talking about.
That's exactly what. Believe me, that's 100% why I wanted to have you.
Blacks are not getting into school. BS. We have affirmative action. So a black person with an SAT and a GPA of X will get into a school faster and easier than a white person with an SAT or a GPA of X. And if going to school is a route to the middle class, you can make an argument that blacks have an easier route to the middle class. If you're talking about poverty, the poorer you are, the more accessible loans and grants are for you. The problem, the biggest burden that black people have, in my opinion, again, is the percentage of blacks, 75% of them, that are raised without fathers. And that has every other social negative consequence connected to it. Crime, not being able to compete economically in the country, being more likely to be arrested, that's the number one problem facing the black community. And when I hear people tell me about systemic racism or unconscious racism, I always say, give me an example, and almost nobody can do it.
So the family stuff. So I'll follow your logic there on the family stuff. What can actually be done about that then? I mean, because that's a big
reverse the welfare state. In 1890, 1900, you look at census reports. A black kid, believe it or not, was slightly more likely to be born to a nuclear intact family than a white kid. Even during slavery, a black kid was more likely to be born under a roof with his biological mother and biological father than today. What's happened is we launched this so-called war on poverty in the 60s, where literally Lyndon Johnson sent people knocking on doors. I lived in the 60s, and people knocked on doors apprising women of their availability to welfare, provided there was no man in the house. And we went from 25% of blacks being born outside of wedlock in 65 to 75% right now. And you look at how much money that we spent on welfare, and the lines are parallel. It was a neutron bomb dropped on this country, not just on the black community, but on people in general. At one time, only about 5% of whites were born outside of wedlock. Now 25% of whites are born outside of wedlock. I was in college in 1970, and there was a report called the Moynihan Report The Negro Family, A Case for National Action. It's written by a liberal, by a man who became a Democratic senator from New York. And at the time, 25% of black kids were born outside of wedlock. He said, my God, this number is horrific. If we don't do something about it, it could get even higher. Well, fast forward, 25% of white kids are now born outside of wedlock. It is the #1 problem in this country. And what we've done, in my opinion, is we've economically incentivized women to marry the government, and we've allowed men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And now we have this.
How do people not see what's going on? How do people think it's okay that kids are going to grow up just fine with no father in the home, no two-parent love in the house, no discipline, no values, no godly foundation, more importantly. And we need this conversation now. The assumption of systemic racism is going way too far. People keep talking about it. They keep making money off of it. That's why it's still an issue. That's why it's still being portrayed as a popular topic, and it's being portrayed as though it's actually going on when it's not. Like, slavery's over. These Democrats, these far-left lunatics keep pushing it because they want women and men and black people and white and Latino and everybody to depend on them. They never actually come through for you. Like, they're dividing and conquering even more. Why not come together? What is wrong with true unity? Like, people talk about all these divided issues, but let's talk about unity. Let's talk about what God says. Let's talk about a man and a woman laying it down together in a covenant of marriage and raising that child. Two flesh shall become one. What is wrong with that? What is evil, demonic about that? Nothing at all. It's full of love. It's full of truth. It's full of contentment and real peace of mind. And I love how Larry didn't let Rubin off the hook that easily. I love how he made him answer. He's like, you can't call out this issue. You can't cry wolf without giving some evidence, without standing firm with some facts and some logic behind it. And Larry, he's brilliant, nothing but reason, logic, and common sense, which we know is not that common anymore. And honestly, I refuse to apologize for being white. Matter of fact, I'm 25% black, but I never owned a slave. I never mistreated anyone that looked different than me. In fact, if we're being technical, I'm sure every one of us has had ancestors who were slaves. And it is what it is, but it has no bearing on everyday life functions nowadays. Any position you want to have, president, celebrity, athlete, whatever it may be, you might not have the physical or mental gifts to get to athlete or popular status, but you can succeed. You can have financial freedom. You can have peace of mind and contentment. More importantly, no matter what color you are, if you qualify, if you've put in the necessary work and the obligations to meet that criteria, you can get it. Now, regardless if you think Dave was right or wrong, he listened to what Larry had to say and he pondered on it, then considered applying the new information into his worldview. And most people from either end of the political spectrum are unwilling to do this. So he has mad respect. And I still believe he's a little misguided. I know he's still misguided with things like that he's married to another man and things like that, which of course I disagree with. It's not biblical. Men and women are supposed to be with each other. And just like the first two, Adam and Eve, that's just how it is. But in regards to his willingness to have his mind changed and have a respectful, logical, fair discussion, again, big respect for me. He earned a lot from me with this one. Even though this was 7 years ago, I appreciate this conversation, and it needs to be put in front of more people. That's why I'm reacting to it. And for me personally, this whole conversation was refreshing. And just like my shirt says, once lost, now found, I didn't used to have any sort of critical thinking skills in regards to politics, and especially I didn't walk in faith. I was a scumbag of a man, promiscuity, pornography, everything. Before my wife guided me onto the path of the Lord, I was told as a kid that it was okay. I grew up in a single mother household, alcoholic stepfather. He didn't come in the picture till I was like 5, 6 years old, something like that. My dad was basically just a donor. Is what it is. I still made it out, but was it easy? Absolutely not. Would I have rather had my two biological parents together, married, my dad actually knowing how to work hard and instilling discipline in me? 100%. I would have been way better off. I could have skipped and jumped over a whole lot of anxiety, depression, things of that nature. But no, it was the way it was. God allowed it to happen and come into fruition how it did. And thank God that I've seen that side. Thank God that I know what it looks like, and it's not the way. Walking in faith is the way. And I used to think the world owed us something just because we were born and brought into these lies and all these things that are being spewed all around me that painted the picture as though your appearance had some upper hand sort of value, and if you didn't look a certain way, you got the shaft. That's not the way the world works at all, and that's false. These media figureheads, these multi-million-dollar athletes and influencers that you see on TV and on your social media apps, they're lying to you. Stop letting them give you this fake information as though it can't be done because they're black, they're white, they're Latino, whatever they look like. If it's been done by one, it can be done again, because with God, all things are possible. And I know God isn't in these people's lives a lot of the time. God isn't the one that they're looking to. They don't have faith. They think that they're their own God, that truth is relative, and they still made it. So can you imagine if God is at the forefront, at the centerfold, and you acknowledge Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior? Can you imagine the things you can accomplish? Stop looking at Tom, Dick, and Harry to give you that raise and work harder. Give them no choice but to give you that scholarship, give you an executive job, or if you really think like me, start your own company and own the whole dang thing. Like, why can't you? Why not you? Look up, pray about it, ask God if that's the way that you need to be walking, and keep it pushing. Like, you can go out there and get whatever it is that you want. Stop letting somebody hold you down as though society or the system has you constantly held down in this gutter. It's not true. It's not reality. You can go out and achieve whatever it is that you want if you're willing to qualify and put in that extra grind time. But as you can tell, I'm passionate about this sort of thing. It hits home. It's personal to me, but I got to reel it in with some biblical truth, some soul food for y'all. Got to spread the gospel, got to put it in front of you and allow you to think for yourself. But I know this is truth. This Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, changed my life. So I'm always going to revert back to this, and I'm always going to put these scriptures in front of you and allow you to meditate on those and then move forward. So we're taking it over to Acts 17, verse 26. And it says, "And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined and allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place." So God made all of this happen. No matter what you look like, he made from one man, from Adam, then came Eve, and then y'all know the family tree. We all came from the same ancestors. So it don't matter what pigmentation you got, how tan or lack thereof, sheet white paper you are, it don't matter. We all bleed red. We're all Homo sapiens. That is a gift. That is a blessing. And then Colossians 3, verse 2 says, "Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth." All these earthly issues, all these made up issues and oppressive topics that they're talking about, stop looking at that. Lean on Jesus Christ. Lean on that understanding. No matter what situation you're in, you never had it as bad as Jesus Christ, who voluntarily, the perfect person, took on the cross for all the evil, all the sin. We could have been wiped clean. After Sodom and Gomorrah, God didn't have to send Jesus Christ. God didn't have to allow Noah to put one of each kind into that ark. He didn't have to let that happen. But Jesus Christ voluntarily said, "Put it on me. Put it on me," took it on the cross, beat death, was resurrected, gave us the Holy Spirit. So that's who I'm looking to. That's who I was baptized in his name. That's who I'm looking to for eternal peace and salvation. Stop looking at these worldly things, because it's going to end up in sad, sappy, depressed, victim mindset, and it ultimately leads to death. When you keep waging sin like the world is, it leads to death. So at the end of each day, if you don't have peace of mind and contentment, you have nobody to blame but yourself, because you have a personal choice. Every single day you wake up with a choice. You can leave all the past behind you. You don't have to look in that rear view mirror anymore. What's in front of you is what you can control. What's around you, how you grew up, who brought you up, whether single mom, single dad, no parents, adopted parents, dead, whatever it may be, whatever your cards that you've been dealt are, you can make a choice to move forward in the positive direction. You could lift society up, because nobody's holding you down. Nobody's holding you down in the dumps. So breathe, get your butt up, pick up your cross, and pursue the perfect example of Jesus Christ. That's the answer. That's how we solve all this nonsense. But if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. If you want to support the channel, you can head over to my wife's Etsy store, get this once lost, now found shirt, as well as a bunch of other different designs, Christian, American, all of that, petite tee, big sizes, bleach, no bleach, all different colors. We got it over there. Anything you need is linked down below in the description section, as well as like all links of products I use and things to make these videos possible. But just showing up, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Until next time, I'm praying for you. I love you. Godspeed. I'm gone.